Welcome to the Respectful Divorce Podcast. If you're considering a divorce, it's important that you know that you have options for how you divorce. On the Respectful Divorce Podcast, we explore those options and provide advice from divorce professionals. I'm your host today, Tim Crouch, and we're talking with members of the St. Louis Collaborative Family Law Association today about divorce in the St. Louis area and the upcoming Divorce with Respect Week. Joining us today are Susan Amato from the Amato family law firm in Clayton, Missouri, John Ernst, a CPA with the firm of Smith Patrick in Webster Grove, Missouri, and Erika Ottolini, a therapist with Artemis Counseling Services in Clayton. Thank you all for being with us today.
Thank you, Tom.
So the first question for somebody watching this, wanting to learn more about divorce, might very well be to say, wait a minute, yeah, I see the attorney, but why do we have a CPA and a counselor on this call?
When we do a collaborative divorce, we pay attention to all three of the pieces of divorce that are going on. So we have a lawyer who helps with the legal piece. We have a financial expert who helps with the financial piece. And we have the mental health professional because divorce is an emotional process. And I can tell you that I have negotiated many, many divorces, and they are unlike negotiating other contracts because with a divorce comes strong feelings. And if we want to make good business decisions, we need to really work to focus and manage our feelings in a way that's going to be productive to move us forward. So that's what Erika does.
Right.
I think. Correct.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that we've also kind of called this, the weatherman, the weatherwoman of the experience, right? Our job as mental health people is to kind of take the temperature of not only the room where the meetings are held, but how the clients are doing along the way, and to help facilitate really, thorough socio-emotional care for the experience, which, as Susan mentioned, it's an intense. This is an emotional milestone in a person's life, and the mental health person is there the coach is there to help the people manage that aspect of it.
I'm going to add one more thing to that. Yeah. That we also have mental health people to help with developing a parenting plan. So rather than having two lawyers sitting negotiating where your kids are going to be, often people work with their divorce coach without the lawyers at the table to help them to negotiate their parenting schedule. And we also involve mental health professionals called child specialists who can bring the voice of the child into the room without actually bringing the child into the room, so that we keep our process focused on what's the best for the whole family, including the child, who is a person who doesn't really have any control over what's happening. And sometimes it's nice for them for the parents to have some help to keep the interests of their children on the front burner when they have a lot of other things on the front burner as well.
So John, you're a CPA. What do you bring to the divorce process?
I bring to the divorce process basically the accounting part of it piece, as far as figuring out the party's income. I assist in the division of assets and also any tax issues. Sometimes there may be a tax impact if they sell an asset like a stock or bond in an investment account.
So Susan, you've been doing this for a while as a divorce attorney. What is it like to go through a divorce in the St. Louis area?
The path from I think I'm going to get divorced to I'm divorced can look completely different depending on the choices that the family makes and on the particular situation. So some people need the structure of the courthouse and the adversarial process. Many people don't. Many people want to have a divorce that no one says, I would like to have a long, contentious, and expensive divorce. No one says that. But depending on their particular situation and depending on the initial steps that they take, it can make a big difference. So I think that step one should always be, to confer either with one of the neutrals, like a financial neutral or a divorce coach, or with a collaborative lawyer, to kind of get the rundown of what are the choices to get from here to there. Do I only need a non-contested divorce? Can I do it with just a mediator at the table and the couple, maybe a lawyer or two in the wings? Would I like and benefit from the support of the full collaborative team? Or am I in kind of an emergency situation that I have to do it, what I would say the long, hard, and expensive way? And get a good consultation at the beginning so that you can roadmap yourself in the best way for your family.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question, but
yeah. So, as we think about the differences on that, I think you said the long, hard way. The long, hard way looks like what?
If I want them in a contentious divorce, I file a request for documents. I get an objection to it. I take it to the court. The judge says I can have them, or I can only have part of them, or I send out a subpoena and I get an objection to that, and then I have to file a motion to compel for that, and then again I get all my records months later, and maybe I get them and maybe I don't get them. So just even the simplest thing is gathering financial data is so much simpler in a collaborative process when people are working together to kind of not get stuck in the administrative part and focus on the big decisions. The other thing is kind of communication. In a collaborative divorce, where we sit at the table and we brainstorm options for how to solve a problem. In a litigated divorce, often that doesn't even happen until months down the road. And then you're sending proposals back and forth through lawyers, which I'll just say is inefficient at best. And the message of what's important to people gets lost in the translation.
Yeah. And so, Erika, what happens emotionally to people as they're going through that kind of process?
Well, I think, we're calling it the long, hard way because it is arduous, it's expensive, but it also takes an emotional toll on everyone. And people finish that litigated divorce exhausted, really emotionally spent, even traumatized by the experience. What collaborative attempts to do by having a mental health professional on board is to pay attention to that during the process so that people are already beginning to think about those things and beginning the healing journey before we've even reached a settlement. And so it's a really critical piece that I think often gets overlooked. I mean, people know that divorce can be emotionally trying and vexing and arduous, but to have help while people are going through the process is pretty revolutionary. And that's what you get in collaborative.
Yeah. And Susan, that help is also the work that John does, that as a neutral versus when you're in a litigated situation, you may have two people like John and double the expense.
Right. And I don't have them in real time. So if I've got John at the table and I have a tax question, or the other person has a tax question, he's there to answer it, and then we get the answer, we move on. It's a lot different in a litigated situation. If John is the expert for the other side and I want to know what he's thinking, I have to take his deposition. Just saying those words costs a lot of money. So.
And John, I'll bet that's a lot of fun to go through a deposition as opposed to when you're able to be a neutral, right?
Right. Having questions drilled to me, the couple of cases that I was on as far as the collaborative law, it was very peaceful. So it was like music to my ears. It was a lot easier of a process.
It's a difference between proving your case and solving a problem. So if John is my expert, I'm going to set him up to argue my position. And if he's my collaborative neutral, then I just want him to help us figure out the best tax outcome we can come up with.
So
it really sets the tone too, to have professionals acting like team members.
I agree.
Yeah, because the team is kind of a whole different concept, isn't it?
Very much so.
It's a very nice way to work if you've been working in an adversarial environment for a long time. The shift to working with a team is it's really great.
Yeah. So John, what led you to the collaborative process?
What I've been doing the litigation side of things since 1999. I guess about 3 years ago, an attorney that I worked with on other cases invited me to the group. And that's how I got involved in the St. Louis Collaborative Law Group.
Well, and Erika, what about you? How did you get drawn into this as part of your work?
Similarly, I was working a lot with family court adjacent, family court related families and going through divorce. Either I was working with the children or with the parents. And oftentimes there was a lot of conflict, and it was very adversarial, especially between the parents. And so I was looking for some relief from that and found out about this process and started kind of doing a little bit more digging, because I just, watching families go through that, it's quite moving. And you think to yourself, there's got to be another way. And so about 7 years ago, I was introduced to this group, and turns out it's global. And that was even more exciting, that there are people all over the world doing this kind of work to help families divorce with respect.
How have you seen this process make a difference in people's lives versus if they'd gone through the long, hard way of a litigated divorce?
Well, I think once you do a case with the team, you start with the best intentions, but it isn't all rainbows and unicorns. I mean, people aren't like skipping towards a finish line. It is still a divorce. There's still really hard work to do. It's an emotional journey. But what I have found to be true is that people feel supported, and people feel like they're onto a new beginning rather than coming to a horrible end. And they aren't quite so burnt out, which benefits their children and their future selves. So I've seen it be really tremendous, even when there is, a little bit of acrimony between the parents. It can still be a new beginning for families.
Yeah. And Susan, what about you? How have you seen it make a difference for families?
One thing is, once the divorce is over, if there's a bump in the road, I don't hear from them again. They go to their coach. If they're having problems with their kids in a parenting thing, I don't end up in a contentious motion to modify. They call the coach, they deal with the problem. Well, it's a little problem. They have that person still there if issues come up in the future to help them through it. And things come up in the future when you're dealing with raising kids in two households. During the process, I think the feeling that people have of control over the outcome is reassuring. I think it's hard. It's hard to do this work. I mean, I think my clients amaze me all the time with the grace that they go through their divorce process when they come into this process and really work hard to put their best foot forward and to think of their own needs and the needs of everybody in the family. And I think that people they don't come out of a collaborative divorce without something that they said yes to. So they're not having an outcome that wasn't okay. And I think they appreciate that. If I think of my own clients' sort of happiness after the process is over, I do think that as Erika said, it's still a divorce and it's hard, but I think that they feel better about how they went through it. and how they behave themselves.
I want to turn back to John, your role as a financial neutral. Tell me how you work as a neutral versus in a litigated circumstance. What is it that you do that helps get people to the finish line?
Well, I think one thing, I worked ironically on two. They were similar businesses. One was a litigation divorce case and one was a collaborative law case. And it just seemed like it was a lot easier getting documents, and the parties wanted to work together to get the calculations done. Where the other litigation, it was kind of a cat and mouse game, getting files. And it seemed like the costs racked up on that case because they kept going on, and it just seemed like the dirty laundry comes out at the meetings in front of everybody, as opposed to behind people's back in the litigation area from the financial standpoint. And one of the case that I'm talking about was from the litigation side. Apparently, the wife, I was working for the wife, and she was alleging the husband wasn't reporting all the inventory and using the inventory on the side. Where I didn't have that kind of those issues in the collaborative law. All the issues came up in the first meeting that I met everybody, the parties.
And that, as I've heard about the neutrals, one of the things you do that doesn't happen in litigated divorces, you help people maybe see their financial future after the divorce is over, right?
That can be. The thing is with collaborative law is once we're in this container, you have to provide the advice to both parties. So once you're done with the case, you're pretty much finished with it, as opposed to litigation. Sometimes clients come back and it's almost what Sue said. Basically, they talk to the coach. I mean, financially, sometimes in a litigation case, I get people calling, well, you did this investment account. I got this investment account. What's the tax issues on it? Where here, it's closed and you walk away from it.
But within the case, right, John, what I've seen the financial neutrals do is begin to help the family think about their financial future, everybody's financial future, before the divorce is over, as opposed to just kind of being dropped off in litigation at the end. Best of luck.
Yeah, I think you're talking about like goals and the future with retirement funds and how they want to spend their money and as far as savings.
And we do planning as opposed to just staking out our positions of what we want and kind of arguing them in a collaborative context. We're really putting together what are the resources of the family, what are the expenses of the family, what are the needs of everybody, and instead of just spending our money on proving our case, we're spending our money on figuring out how this is going to work going forward. What are everybody's budgets going to be? Who's going to pay what? How are we going to make it work? What resources are we going to use? So it is a planning process for the post-divorce financial picture as well as the kids' picture.
And there's a consideration too, right? That this family has one kitty of financial asset, and we need to use that wisely, whether it's division of assets or spending on the divorce process. So we try to keep that in mind, all of us professionally, as we're going through this process with a family, and not just wildly racking up bills, as can happen in litigation.
We use an interest-based negotiation process. We gather all of the information first. Then we figure out what's important to these people. Then we start generating ideas for how to make decisions moving forward, whether we're talking about kids or whether we're talking about assets or whether we're talking about income and expenses. We toss around ideas, we analyze them, we get input from people like John, and whatever other information that we need, and then we help folks to make decisions.
You're participating in Divorce with Respect Week, which is coming up March 1st through 8th. Divorce with Respect Week, it means what in terms of divorcing with respect? How do you sort of see that term?
When a marriage is ending, it's hard and it's sad, and you can go at it with anger and revenge, or you can go at it with an acknowledgement of the years that you had and the things that were good, and with an effort to make sure that everybody's okay going forward, even though it's rough. And I think that's if thinking about my needs are important, my kids' needs are important, and my soon-to-be former spouse's needs are also something that I need to consider in restructuring our family. I think that's how I would define divorce with respect.
Yeah, Erika?
I think about it. Yeah, I think about it twofold, because there's certainly the professionals are keeping that in mind. Like, we want to surround this family with respect and work with them in a respectful manner. When we talk about, if you were a fly on the wall, you might not know which attorney was representing which person. That's the goal. Each client should feel the mutual respect of all the professionals in the room. But then I also think about, the family. Our goal is to leave them in a better place than we found them. And, we oftentimes, litigated divorce, the parental relationship can get sabotaged. And we tell people, you have a lifelong journey together. Well, as long as your children walk the face of the earth, we hope that's a very long time. So how do you want to do this moving forward? And most often people are saying, respectfully, please. And so I think that we help model that, and we help people get there so that they can, at the end of this collaborative divorce process, say, we've been through a lot, and I respect you, and we're off to a new chapter of our lives.
Well, John, I'll ask you the same question. When we say divorce with respect, what does that mean to you?
That means to respect both parties. I think what happens is usually one party is the main voice from the financial side of things, and the party that wasn't involved in the financial aspects of the marriage, they need to have a voice in the negotiation and in these meetings. I mean, so you have to give a fair listen to both parties. Where in a litigation side, you don't usually hear the other sides unless you go to court or they're being deposed.
I want to thank you all for joining us on the Respectful Divorce podcast today. Lots of great information. People can talk to members of the St. Louis Collaborative Family Law Association for free during Divorce with Respect Week. And if somebody wanted to talk specifically to you, how can they get in touch with you? Susan?
Phone number is 314-727-7122. And you can also reach me through my website, which is amatofamilylaw.com.
All right. Erika?
Feel free to reach out at our admin line for Artemis Counseling. That's 314-764-0246. And we also have a website where you can inquire about questions, and that is www.artemis-counseling.com.
All right. John?
Smith Patrick's website is smithpatrickcpa.com. Our office phone number is 314-961-1600.
All right. Again, thank you all for being with us today. We will put the contact information in the show notes so that you can get that information through this podcast as well. I want to thank those of you who've been watching online for watching the Respectful Divorce podcast. This important programming note, Divorce with Respect Week, is coming up March 1st through 8th, 2026. During Divorce with Respect Week, you can talk with lawyers, divorce coaches, divorce financial experts for free to learn more about the divorce process and your options for divorce. Simply go to divorcewithrespectweek.com to find professionals near you. Once again, Divorce with Respect Week, March 1st through 8th. For more information, that's divorcewithrespectweek.com. I'm Tim Crouch for the Respectful Divorce podcast, reminding you that collaborative divorce is a better way to untie the knot.